merger of SGIA and PIA was the most prominent deal announced in the latest target report. While that was obviously in the works for quite a while, it certainly comes at a time when the M&A market is very quiet. Mark, any thoughts on what the merger of these two associations means for our industry?
Well, Rod, thanks again for hosting the target report and this being number two. Yes, I think that the merger of SGIA and PIA was a long time coming, and it's really indicative of the overall consolidation trend in the printing and related industries that's been occurring for a couple decades now. And interesting enough, I think the SGIA, which has its roots in the screen printing industry, has morphed into really the wide format and specialty printing industry association. So they went from representing not the backwater, but really very simple, old-fashioned screen printing technology to the cutting edge, the digital wide format UV technology. So that excitement built around the SGIA and the higher margins that wide format printing was affording people really moved the ball, so to speak, away from the older commercial printing associations over to the SGIA. And that culminated really in the formation of the Printing United show, the purchase of NAPCO by SGIA, and now the merger of the two organizations. And if you think back to the print and the Graph Expo shows back in the day, they were very exciting with the big presses and the noise and the hiss and everything that was going on at those shows. The last few shows, I know they're done now. I don't think there's going to be any more. They were awfully quiet. When the big iron manufacturers stopped coming to the shows, the very nature and character of those shows changed, and they just weren't as exciting. And obviously, the wide format equipment, it's more transportable, it's easier, it's new technology. So the center of gravity shifted. This is kind of a natural evolution of that process. And I think it is probably good for the industry. Commercial printers who have offset printing and wide format no longer have to think about, well, which association should I join? It's now one association that represents a wide spectrum of printing technology. So I think it's probably best for the industry at this point in time.
April was a particularly quiet month for us in the M&A world, and activity among print production companies especially. Besides the trade associations coming together, the only transactions between print production companies both involved a tuck-in of one company into the other. Mark pointed out in the target report that we expect more of these types of transactions and that many of these will be financially challenged, especially as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. Joining us now on our target report interview is John Hyde, widely regarded as the leading expert on distressed M&A in the printing industry. Welcome, John. We're just delighted to have you with us today. And we'd really like to know, what is your take on the current climate, and has COVID-19 really changed the nature of M&A in your opinion?
Thanks, Rod. Thanks for having me. The COVID crisis has not changed anything in the world of distressed M&A. Obviously, it's changed a lot in the world of healthy company M&A. And there is a great line, a boundary between the healthy companies that have businesses valued on their earnings, they have good cash flows. Those are the leading companies. That's a different market than the ones that are right now that are being considered for sale. The ones that are struggling. There's a tremendous number of companies treading water or worse. And those are the ones that have not yet pulled the trigger on a transaction. That's why there is not a lot of reported activity in the target report. But believe me, they are bubbling up to the surface, and there will be a surge at some point in the not so foreseeable future.
So a lot of these firms are getting these PPP loans, and in spite of getting those, I mean, these companies are still struggling. Do you think, well, first of all, what are the options for an owner that's getting this type of loan? They're going to spend it, and all of a sudden now they have to go to the next step. And what are those options for them?
Well, it really comes down to the Jack Welch theory. Jack Welch, the famous architect of GE from the 1980s, he so eloquently said that your options are to fix the business, sell it, or close. And the treading water companies may have received, well, not just treading water companies, most companies have received their PPP funds, and it certainly has helped. That's a cash flow solution. It's not a profitability solution. So your revenues are down, but you're collecting receivables from higher sales periods, and you have the PPP money. So maybe the immediate pain is not quite there, which does give you the time to consider whether to fix the business or sell it or close it. And those really are the three options.
But how do you sell a business if it's not profitable? I mean, don't you need a solid EBITDA value to really get something in the marketplace?
What you really need are strong customer relationships. That's what has traction to other companies in the printing and graphics industry. And with a strong customer base, you have something to sell. You do not necessarily have to have EBITDA or any earnings. You could be losing money, but as long as that customer base has some life to it, and that's really what people want. Why? Because everyone else needs sales. So if you have the customers and someone else has infrastructure, equipment, personnel, those are the matches that are really ideally suited for this environment. And that's what the tuck-in transactions are really all about.
So that's where the tuck-ins really come from.
Absolutely. The concept is not new. The concept of consolidating two companies under one roof, it's only a question of how that is allocated, how that consolidation savings is allocated. And is it a situation where somebody is buying another, or are they mergers of equals? The underlying fundamental is still the same. There has to be an enormous savings based on not having duplicate equipment and production and infrastructure. That doesn't mean that the company that's the seller is not getting value. And it doesn't mean that their people are left out in the cold. In this day and age, equipment has some value. It's not like people think, oh, the equipment's not valuable. But no, the equipment has value. It's sold selectively. The personnel, the key people, have a lot of value. You know how hard it is to find people right now who know anything about how to operate a printing company? So there's value in the personnel. And those are the things that acquirers are looking for: customer relationships, select equipment, and really good people. And the sum total of that will get value for the seller, even if they have no E in EBITDA.
What happens when you've got banks to pay, you've got leases payable, leases and payables? I mean, don't you need a lot of cash in order to be able to put one of these deals together?
You would think that you need a lot of cash to get out from under the debts in one fell swoop, or even in total. But the reality is you don't. And the reason is that the assets are worth what they're worth. And if the pie is only so big, the question then becomes, how do the slices get allocated? It's not a question of, well, if the pie is not big enough to fit all the people that want to eat off of it, that's not it. So ultimately, this is about fair treatment for creditors, presenting things in a way that makes sense. And it could be done many times without bankruptcy. It could be done with bankruptcy, but that's not optimal for companies in the printing and graphics industry.
But wouldn't they have to file bankruptcy if there's not enough value to get the debts paid?
Well, really, it's not about the bankruptcy. It's about convincing creditors that there's really nothing else there, that the pie is only so big and it's been allocated fairly, and that they're part of that. This is not about, quote, stiffing your creditors. That's not going to work. Creditors know when they're being had. And it's not going to be a situation where companies are going to want to litigate these cases. Sometimes there's some litigation, but ultimately the solutions are not found in courts. They're not adversarial solutions. They're relatively peaceful. It's about an amicable parting of the ways between creditors and the company. And I can only say, just from experience, having done this once or twice, that's the outcome that most treading water companies are going to pursue.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's been great to have you with us today. John as well, thank you again. And thank you for watching the Target Report interview. We hope you'll join us again next month.